Pen Made Mightier without bullets.
Welcome back, DC enthusiasts. I swear, we are done with Assault on Arkham. We are never revisiting that again. It is dead, it is gone, it is buried. Instead, why don't we go ahead and talk about Gods and Monsters, a far more entertaining DC animated feature film. Alright, Justice League Gods and Monsters. Also roughly 75 minutes, which seems to be the DC animated norm these days. It's a 2015 direct-to-video release, but in a twist, this film was actually done before the comic series that they're going to tie into. Comics are coming after the animated feature. I'm really interested to see how that works out. I should also mention, this movie is not perfect. I'm not praising this as like Batman Mask of the Phantasm or anything like that. Might not even be better than the Nolan movies in your opinion, and that's totally fine too. I'm not sure it's better than the Nolan movies in my opinion, but I will say that this one is way more entertaining than, you know, the one we're not talking about that one anymore. So first, the cons of this film. It's got a really muddy continuity, and you're going to spend the first half of this movie maybe going, wait, who is that? What is, huh? I don't understand. With such questions as, spoiler alert. With such questions as, is Batman a vampire? Why is Wonder Woman wearing that? And Superman has a goatee. Basically what I'm saying is it takes a pretty detailed knowledge of the DC universe to truly get the most out of this film. It's probably not a bad thing, because I would be willing to hazard a guess that only the most diehard of DC fans are watching these films anyway, so they're probably okay with that. But for the casual viewer, might not be a great one to show your uncle who hasn't read comics in 30 years, because he'll have more questions than answers. And if you're wondering exactly how detailed you'll need to know the DC universe, well, I'll get into that, but it's not an easy hurdle to jump. I'll go ahead and say, like, I'm pretty familiar with comics and continuities. I'll admit that I'm not as big a DC fan as I am, say, a Marvel or Image or Dark Horse. Okay, I guess you could say DC is my least favorite comic imprint, but I still know quite a bit, and compared to those around me, I'd say I know quite a lot, with the exception of one or two people who best me on every subject. This is not your dad's DC feature. There are some really extreme shifts in origin stories and motivations this time around, and honestly, I think that's the most captivating thing about Gods and Monsters. Superman, everyone's favorite Man of Steel and Kansas farm boy, is a little bit less so now. He's not Jor-El's son anymore, he's Zod's son. And everyone knows Zod from that piece of crap Man of Steel. If you haven't seen Man of Steel, don't. In addition to that, in one of the darker moments of the film, it's almost implied that Zod would have forcibly had some unwelcome intercourse with Superman's mom in order to make sure that his legacy was passed on to Earth. But instead, he does a thumbprint thing, and that's all we need. It's for the best. Superman's pod lands on Earth, but Superman isn't raised by the Kents either. And that means that sweet, caring farm boy nature that we love is gone. He's instead raised by a family of migrant workers who are fundamentally abused by the system, which shows him that you can't trust the system when he's an adult. So basically, he's put through the ringer, and we see that Superman can only take so much, and the Man of Steel becomes, well, steely. Batman kinda gets swapped with Man-Bat. If you're not familiar with Man-Bat, he's a bat that's man-shaped, as opposed to a man that's bat-shaped. Usually a vampire, usually a lowly member of Batman's rogues gallery, usually not worth mentioning. Much the same relationship that Spider-Man has with Man-Spider. Comic writers are not always on their A-game. So Man-Bat goes from being, a misshapen science experiment to being a very well-shaped science experiment in, honestly, one of the more handsome depictions of the Dark Knight. Still a vampire, still likes to claw people and drink their blood and all sorts of crap like that, but they do a real nice twist on the Batman origin story. Bruce, of course, as a kid, sees his parents shot, and then there's always pearls. Always the pearl necklace. Always the pearl necklace. Seriously, DC, we get it. We get it. After that, he usually goes and trains with the League of Assassins, eventually gets betrayed by Ra's al Ghul, and comes back home, nearly dies, usually by Bane's hand or something like that, and only after that happens and he is reborn in a Christ-like fashion does he become the true Dark Knight. But Man-Bat shifts that around. They still call him Batman, by the way. They don't call him Man-Bat. It's just who he is. His character's name isn't Bruce Wayne. It's his character's name. Look it up if you're confused. I'm sorry, I really can't do better than that, and that's one of the problems with Gods and Monsters. So, this new Batman, who is not Man-Bat, but actually Batman, nearly dies when his science experiment goes awry. After that, he feels betrayed by the people who were supposed to be close to him, and he is removed from their life, and only after that does he lose everybody that he cares about. One by one, they are killed off. Meaning that the origin story has been inverted, which, clever, well done. And then we have Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman, of course, is normally the Amazoness who is here on a mission of peace and diplomacy, wearing our colors so that we feel secure. Not so in this continuity. No, Wonder Woman is a member of the New Gods. The New Gods being a classic DC storyline about interstellar super deity kind of dealing. I don't know much about the New Gods. I really don't. This is where that intense needing to understand DC's stories go from, because New Gods are barely ever talked about in any of the mainstream media. Were they on Smallville? Were they on Gotham? No. Dude from the OC can't handle the New Gods. They're kind of tough. So, if you don't know the New Gods, you want the most out of the story, you might look them up. So yes, Wonder Woman is a new god, and she is running from her past, where her would have been arranged marriage, but then turned into what could have been a true romance, had sort of a Romeo and Juliet thing going, where the families then go to war, and everybody good gets murdered, including Darkseid, which was weird. And then she flees to Earth to escape her family, as opposed to going there on her family's wishes to breathe peace. She's running from her family to escape war. Again, turned on its head. I like it. So with that, we have our Justice League. They literally don't give any sort of care towards any of the other characters. Kind of wanted a dark Aquaman. I kind of thought that would have been cool. Or a dark version of the Flash. I'd really like to have seen him twisted around, but you know, they probably just would have used the inverted versions of them, like Black Manta, Anti-Flash, or whatever the hell his name is. And so maybe we didn't need them. But these three are our Justice League, and they're really interesting. And because they are so morally ambivalent, and because they are so powerful, and because they are so self-assured that what they're doing is right, it runs them afoul of a whole cast of problems that the Justice League has never had to deal with. The world as a whole opposes them. The military doesn't like them. Even Lois Lane decries them at every chance that she possibly gets. It's cool to see Lois hate the Justice League and have reason for it. Lex Luthor not being douched around by Clark Kent at every instance, like in Smallville, where he wasn't even doing anything. He's allowed to grow up to be a decent human being. He becomes a diplomat. By the end of it, he is a paraplegic space scientist who has given up on the world and all of its ilk and decided to wander the stars. Far cry from what we normally get from Lex Luthor, the man who can only grip the world so intensely as he vies for power, to become a man who's given it all up to walk away. I like this Lex Luthor. Not more than Michael Rosenbaum. I love that guy. He's the best Lex Luthor we've ever had. I don't like Facebook Lex Luthor either. I think he looks stupid. I don't care. Disagree with me. Do it. Do it! They cast all of these differences that I talked about before in a really wonderful shadow box in the first fight that the Justice League takes part in, which they're just raiding a facility with some low-level superhumans and some military people. And the military tells Justice League, hey, hold off, we're on our way, we'll be right there. And the Justice League's like, we got it. And they descend flying down as kind of like Zod and his people normally do, actually. Oh, didn't think about that. And Superman incinerates people with his heat vision. Wonder Woman flat out cuts people open with her sword. and Batman feeds on people. Yeah. It was actually kind of unsettling to watch. So they murder people absolutely brutally. They ignore authority left and right. They take no prisoners throughout the entire thing, just killing everybody indiscriminately. And at the end, they don't even care. They're happy with themselves and tell everyone who dares criticize them that they should be happy for them too, that they did the world a service. And in a shocking twist, he both stamps this time, because we're about to spoil the whole end of the movie. The Metal Men are the bad guys. If you don't know who the Metal Men are, then you're probably, 80% of the average comic reading population. Metal Men are pretty low on the totem pole for people you should be aware of. Of course, 3 years ago, I guess I would have said that about the Guardians of the Galaxy. Man, would I be wrong. The Metal Men were not created by, your average all-American scientist, but a disgruntled scientist who's feeling the strain on his psyche. He even murders his wife in a fit of rage, handling domestic abuse in a far more tragic and interesting and respectful way than one we just don't talk about anymore. And this brilliant scientist executes a brilliant plan. He uses these crimes, these failings that we see in our three Justice Leaguers, as an easy way to frame them, to turn people against them even further. Sending the Metal Men out to impale people with swords and incinerate people with heat vision and to drink people's blood until they are dead, so that he can easily pin all of these violent outbursts on the Justice League. And it almost works. I won't go into the complete ending of the movie, but I will say that it deals with some seriously dark themes that I don't see too often in DC. Maybe some of the more brutal Marvel books, but not a whole lot in DC. At least not respectfully. They deal with suicide in the fact that one of the main villains actually does himself in at the end. Whew. They have brutal murders. People are decapitated, disemboweled, burned alive. We have people with their blood being drained by Batman of all people. People with their organs splattered all over the screen. It's really pretty dismal. There's even some nudity in the fact that the Metal Woman is nipples, whatever reason. And then they've got some nude statues and stuff too. That's not so bad, but the fact they dealt with nudity in a tasteful-ish way and didn't shy away from it was weird. So, yeah. What I'm trying to say is, this movie is probably not one to watch around the kids. It's not one to sit your 8-year-old son down, pop the DVD in, and just hope that everything goes okay. There's a lot of swearing in this movie, violent swearing, some of the big stuff that doesn't make it on the networks. So you probably want to watch out for that too if you're sensitive to this sort of thing. All that to say, I don't feel like this movie is dark for darkness' sake. I feel like it paints itself with a dark light so that we can see what these heroes might have been, which is an interesting conundrum to go into. In the end, it turns out to be a giant what-if movie, and I have to wonder if the comics are going to do the same, or if they're going to go a little bit of a different way, or maybe they're just going to be a pure adaptation. Either way, if you want to see the Justice League as you've probably never seen them before, check out Gods and Monsters. But, maybe don't let your mom hear you watching it. Thanks for sticking with us on Pen Made Mightier. If you like this video, share it around. Share it at all these places. And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for sticking with us. Bye now.
Pen made mightier without royalty.